liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes for the December 7th meeting.
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Tessie and second by Dan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Communications?
If there's anyone from the public that's going to speak?
Parks report?
Just want to let you know what we're working on right now. Since it's winter, we're working on a lot of preventative maintenance of buildings, vehicles, equipment, going out to bid for a lot of our regular supply items. And tonight we will be having crews coming in at 8 o'clock to do some pre-salting for some expected snow overnight. And that's pretty much about it right now with the temperatures that we have right now.
Darren, I have a question, or an
Yeah.
observation, really.
Yes.
Right before, well, after the lake froze, over where the ramp is for the boats, that took forever to freeze. But if you stand there and look, there's running water. I don't know if it's a spring or if there's a pipe broke up in that hillside somewhere, but you could actually see the water.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Old business? The half-cent capital improvement sales tax?
Yes. What I wanted to go over tonight is that a couple weeks ago with the half-cent capital improvement sales tax, we did a PowerPoint presentation for the committee. We wanted to share that with you tonight. We've made a couple adjustments, and I'll go through that as we go through the program, but wanted to share that with you guys tonight and whatever comments that you guys had, and we'll move forward here. If you look at our existing aquatic complex, it was the main pool was constructed in 1971, is remodeled in 83. You look at the square footage of it and what it contains here. We move forward with what we call the leisure pool area. It was constructed in 97. It has a few slides, zero depth entry, and some play features. And that was built for around $800,000. As we look forward here, we've gone through and we've looked at different pools across the state of Missouri. We tried to find the ones that have been built more recently. These are all different price ranges. I can see this one here in Chillicothe, Missouri was built in 2013 for $4.2 million. It has a lot of amenities to it, such as zero depth entry, the competition pool, diving boards, climbing wall slides, and some spray features. Moving on to something quite less than what you had there at Chillicothe at Grain Valley, which was built in 2000, $950,000. It's a zero depth entry pool that kind of runs into a lap pool. It has a small slide and a kiddie frog slide. It's pretty bare bones there for $950,000. You look at Sunset Hills, that was built in 2009, around $6 million. It has its lap pool, zero depth entry, lazy river, and some diving boards. Now, one thing with this, it did not include the construction of their bathhouse. That was already an existing bathhouse, but they did some minor remodeling of that. Ellisville was constructed in 2007, $4.3 million. It has a 25-meter pool and the zero depth entry. The zero depth entry also runs into the 25-meter pool, has diving boards, splash features, slides, and that did include a new bathhouse with that one. Brookfield, Missouri, built here recently, is constructed in 2017 for close to $900,000. As the zero depth entry into the competition pool, has a few slides, climbing wall, and a small play structure in the zero depth entry area. Look at Wentzville, 2014, $6.3 million. It has a little bit of everything from zero depth entry, competition pool, lazy river, open flume slides, spray ground, and it also included a new bathhouse, parking lot. Everything is a bare site when they started, so everything is brand new there. Look at Union. It's constructed in 1997 for $1 million. Zero depth entry, competition pool, lazy river, open flume slide, and spray ground. Look at Owensville, Missouri, 2014, 1.6 million. This replaced an older facility that was in existence, pretty much like ours. Has zero depth entry, competition pool, lazy river, flume slides, rock climbing wall, and diving boards.
That didn't include the building though, did it?
I'm not for sure. From what I understand, that part of the building was existing, but there might have been some addition and remodeling to that. I'm showing you just some features here that some of these pools have, or what could be added to a pool, from different slides to kids' play features to spray grounds with slides that don't require lifeguards. And this one here in Collinsville also has a sand area, and as you can see right here to the right of it, people have asked, seeing this, well, how do you keep the sand from the other part? There is a shower tower there that they're supposed to hose off and keep that out, but still some of that's going to be tracked. Still going to be tracked. But these are all just different options and ideas that other people have used. This one here, I believe, is in Ellisville. And when you look at this construction cost, what we did was ran through each city and look at the construction cost. Now, what is tricky here is with the square footage. If you look through there, some cities just put their square footage of their pool, and other people use the square footage of their pool, their deck, or the whole space. So it's very misleading trying to compare apples to apples that. But when you look at your price per square foot, if you look at most of these, they're around $180 per square foot. And I'm sorry, the margins are off. See if I can fix that here on a couple of those. We're good on the screen earlier.
Square foot.
I guess the bigger you go,
Yeah,
could you go,
because that's a big complex.
could you go big enough that it was free? I'm sure that's true. Some, bigger, some, the bigger it gets.
Okay. If you want to go back and look at any of these once we get through it, we can go back. All right, looking through these and the square footage, most of them have been around $180 per square foot. If you look down at the bottom and look at ours, now these were two different projects, one for the leisure pool and one for the competition pool, and it averaged out to $197. But when you break them apart, the reason ours is so high is because our competition pool is out of stainless steel, which really drives it up. When you look at it alone, it was like $224 per square foot. But combined, it brings it down to the 197. Just in the past week or so, I've talked to some different people, and one is a pool engineer designer. They're doing a project in St. Genevieve County, and it's running around $200 a square foot right now. And part of that is due to the hurricanes that happened earlier this year. So product cost, labor cost, that kind of stuff go up. So this is always an ebb and flow, but talking to them, budgeting between 180 and 200, we're in a good range.
That Wentzville pool, what is that made of? Is that plaster?
From the looks of it, most of these pools, going back and looking at them, most of them, you look at the floors of them, this is a rubberized surface on this splash playground. That's just a basic concrete brush. This looks like it's more of a painted concrete finish. Like a pool like this is probably what they consider a plaster type pool. You can tell usually by if it's painted on the walls and everything like that, it's usually a plaster type pool. And that's also gonna drive in the same way. This is Wentzville, it looks all plaster type pool. And your costs are gonna vary. If you go with the plaster type pool, the pros of it, it's cheaper to construct up front. However, ongoing, you're gonna have to repaint these pools every 3 years. And they're between, depending on the size of your pool, it's gonna be 30 to 40 grand. It can be, just depending on the size of your pool. If you go with a Pebble Tech pool, like what we have in our splash play, in our leisure pool, that's the next step up. It's gonna cost you a little bit more up front, but you only have to resurface that like every 10 to 12 years. Then you get to the stainless steel, which is the most expensive, and there is still maintenance with that. You have to go back and you have to weld the seams and stuff like that. And we've been doing that every year for probably the past 10 years with that. But it's lower maintenance on it, but some people don't like it. It heats the water up. That's great early season, mid to late season. It's like a bathtub in there. And so there's pros and cons to all of them. But I'll tell you, most of the pools that you're going to see in municipalities are more what they call the plaster type pools. Getting to our next slide. As we've been working on this with the half-cent capital improvement sales tax, and with staff, we have gone through and looked at these, and we originally started off around a $5 million mark with the pool. Looking at some of these other things, and everything, we've cut it down, looking at a $4 million. Out of this $4 million, and these are, ballpark figures. We'd have to do demo to our existing pool area. If you're looking at the pool and features, somewhere around $3 million with a bathhouse that included concessions and either an additional pump house or how we do that, we're ballparking around $500,000. Architectural engineering is usually around 10% of your design cost. Then there'd be site amenities such as your lounge chairs, your trash cans, your umbrellas, landscaping, those sort of things rounded out, and that gets us to the $4 million mark where we're at today.
Would that be a new bathhouse or a total redoing of?
Well, there's a couple of things that we are looking at with it. Our current bathhouse does not meet ADA, and it doesn't meet a lot of the codes because it was built back in the 1930s. We were looking to possibly repurpose that building, and possibly the main floor, the upstairs floor, that could possibly become park offices. That's one of the options. We are looking at other options for park offices as well, but that is one option. The basement of it, we'd have to wait until we get an architectural engineering firm on board to see if we can do it, but possibly use the basement part of it to put all your pumps and filters and repurpose it for that, which could reduce the cost of adding it to a new bathhouse. But a new bathhouse would be needed for all ADA and other codes for that. It just depends if, like I said, if the filtration system would have to be part of that, or we could repurpose the old basement of the existing bathhouse, which could save us some money on that. So that's pretty much where we're at today. This next Tuesday, the half-cent capital improvement sales tax committee will be meeting again. We'll be going over this as well as a lot of other items to discuss. All of you are invited. If anybody has any questions on this, I'll try to answer them. Yes, Chantel.
The $3 million for the pool and features, how much square footage is that?
That's pretty much based on what we currently have now at our pool, and not just water space, it's water. And if you take your water and deck space that we have now, multiply it by $200 a square foot, comes up to $3 million. It's a little over 15,000. It's like 15,240 or 250 square feet, something like that.
It's on that other slide.
Can we go on that, can we look
Yeah.
at that slide real quick then?
15,
Yeah,
45.
245, yeah.
So that's just based on,
That's basically doing the footprint that we have right now. Not saying that the pools, the design of the pools and everything would be the same as they are now, but just that square footage footprint of what we have now.
do we feel like that square footage is adequate for the need?
I believe so, yeah.
So it's not more or less, we don't need more or less than that?
I don't think we need any more than that,
Or less for that?
or really any less than that. What we've been hearing over the years from, at least I have in my department, I've been hearing from the majority of the residents, is they want more family-oriented play components, and we do also have the swim team component, but our competition pool now is bigger than what they most of them want from a swim team component. They want a smaller pool, like a 25-meter pool, so that would take up less space, which could give you some bigger space for your splash playgrounds and zero-depth entry, that kind of stuff. So I think what we have is adequate from a footprint standpoint, and that's
Our
kind of
attendance
basing,
has been steady over the years.
I'm sorry?
The attendance has been steady over the years, declining, increasing?
It's all goes in cycles, and it just depends. If you have a really hot summer, of course, you're gonna have more patrons. Cool summer, not. But for the most part, it hasn't fluctuated a whole lot. It's been pretty much the same.
This total budget for 4 million on that, does that include a splash park also?
Well, that gets into the whole design of it. I mean, you would have to look at, once we got an architectural engineer on board trying to say, hey, these are the funds that we have available. This is what we've heard from the residents that we want. What can we get for this amount of money? I think it's plenty of money to have a 25-meter pool with a zero-depth entry and some type of splash ground. Now, it just depends how big you want it. And same way with a 25-meter pool. Do you want it to be a 6-lane pool, an 8-lane? Your zero-depth entry, how big of an area do you want that to be? There's a lot of variables that go along in that. Like I said, it depends if you want a plaster-type pool, double-tech pool, whatever also drives the cost.
What was discussed at the sales meeting, at the sales tax meeting, was developing another committee that would look into the design of the pool and what the needs were and the wants were. Would you want to talk a little bit about the YMCA's presentation?
Darren, do you want to address that a little more?
The YMCA, as Sparky mentioned, spoke to the committee at their last meeting. They just wanted to make the committee aware of partnerships that they've done with other cities. We have talked with them a little bit too about the possibility of how can we get the biggest bang out of our buck, so to speak, and if we did a partnership with them, how could we go ahead and work that? We've talked about several different options, and you know, even up to the point of the possibility of maybe even doing a joint partnership with them if they wanted to add on to their existing facility for indoor, and then even have our citizens be able to go ahead with the possibility of even having a pass that would be good for 365 days, so to speak, where they could either go through the YMCA for that part or even then visit the facility that Darren was talking about. Now, with that, we'd have to look at those numbers again and maybe scope this down just a little bit if we wanted to go ahead and do it. It all depends on how much the committee makes a recommendation to the city council on how much. This dollar amount that you saw that Darren's been given to you, we worked with that with staff to try to go ahead and narrow that down a little bit. And again, it was pretty much based on putting it in the same footprint of what you have today. If we would do something like that with the partnership with the Y, we could enter into a cooperative agreement. They just threw out the possibility that they've got varying types of agreements with different cities. They gave different examples. For example, one of them was the city of St. Louis down by Carondelet. I think the city owns the facility, et cetera, but the YMCA operates everything with regard to the facility. So they are still open to discussion with that. But what we have, just to make sure everybody on this board, what we reiterated to the committee the other day was just trying to come up with a dollar amount that you could pass on to council. We don't want to get into the weeds, and now is not the time to design. Now is the time to say, okay, if you want to replace the pool and you want to put this on the capital improvement sales tax for the renewal, this is a major ticket item, and what's the dollar amount that we would like to budget towards that? So. And I do have the list. I'll go ahead and.
Yep.
This is the list, the last list that the committee was presented with at their last meeting. Staff went through and made suggested changes. You can see these are from all the departments. This isn't just the parks, but I was doing the math a while ago. The parks is about 5.9 million is what was on this list. There are some lower ranking projects that we had at the bottom. To give you a little bit of an explanation on that, staff, well, when I say staff, John Nilgis, Darren, Sal Maniaci, myself, we went through all the projects. We tried to sit there and we came up with a scoring system kind of for them, and it was a lot of it had to do with, is this a need or a want? You know, because, and then is it something that, what's the dollar amount that they're asking for? What was the level of outcry from the general public for the project, et cetera? I will tell you that I'll have, Sal can share those results with you. I don't have those off the top of my head, but I will tell you that the majority of them of the comments was for the replacement of the pool, or to do something with the aquatic complex. We had, I think, about 300 responses on the surveys that we did online, and we had those available on our website, but it was through SurveyMonkey, and then we could tally where they were coming from. We asked them what zip code they were coming from, et cetera, because sometimes people from outside we didn't want that outside influence necessarily, but we were able to go ahead, and we feel confident that we really did reach out to the public. As a matter of fact, 8 years ago when I took part of the process, back at that time we had about 3 or 4 different public hearings, and I think we had a total of 37 people walk through the doors and comment, whereas this we had, like I said, close to 300 responses back on the survey. So we felt like there was a better job of reaching out to the public. We still did a public meeting, just so you know, prior to a council meeting. I think that was at the end of November? Yes.
Yes.
November 28th, I think it was. It was right before the city council's admin meeting. And we did have about 12 to 14 people, I think, walk through that night. So, again, here's the list. If you look at the grand total before you get to the lower ranking projects, we're very close to being within the budget of what we project conservatively for the revenue for the next 8 years on the half-cent sales tax. There are some projects down there below that did not rank as high. You know, the biggest one probably being the Fair Board had requested a multi-purpose building located over there by the tennis courts out by the fairgrounds. Would have been a larger building. They wanted to go ahead and possibly throw it out there with the possibility of obviously utilize it during the fair, but then afterwards in the park system could go ahead and rent it, et cetera. We just didn't feel like right now there wasn't anything in our long-range plans for that. There wasn't anything with regards to an outcry of a need for that other than from the Fair Board. So that was one of the projects that was kind of lower ranked. You can see the others. Phase 2 of the skate park was also one that was kind of lower ranked. We didn't have a lot of input with regards to the general public when we put out on the survey. Not to say that between now and when the council looks at these projects that may get out there, that more people decide that they want that second phase of that skate park, we can take a look at that, possible to include it. That's it, unless unless you have any other questions. We've kind of taken this list, and just the other thing I would keep in mind, I think I told some of you on the board last month when you had your meeting, this does not mean that this is the final cost on some of these projects. If a project is strong enough that one of our service organizations wants to get on board and run with it, they can certainly put in the matching funds and we can go ahead and raise more money. As we all know, Rotary, Lions, Optimists, all of our service organizations have contributed to us over the years to help us, help with our costs on some of these projects.
A question about the committee that you're going to have regarding the pool, to develop the needs and wants and everything. Would they be the one? I've had a number of citizens ask me if we're looking into an indoor or an indoor-outdoor pool, something that can be used year-round. Part of that would be working with the YMCA. But would this committee also look into the possibility of an indoor-outdoor pool or something other than what we have right now?
Yeah, I think they can go ahead and look at the needs and see what they feel like. One of the committee members felt very strongly about getting a consulting firm to go ahead and determine what are the needs for your local area. They have methods of trying to figure out what it is, what would be the use. We tried to narrow it down to the folks. We've got the swim teams. You've got the aquatherapy for the older adults that like to use that for exercise, et cetera. You've got the the families, you know, that want, so those are the targeted groups. And somebody also mentioned teenagers as well, too, as part of one of those groups that actually, I guess you kind of technically say 4. But those are the targeted groups that you're looking at for what do you want out of an aquatic complex. And all of those want a little bit different, you know, of what they want. And so I think that study, that group, that's the goal, is don't get in the weeds now. Try to come up with the dollar amount of what you could use. And then later on, you know, if hopefully when the tax would pass, then you could go ahead and get that committee formed and start taking a hard look at what you want to get for $4 million or whatever the dollar amount is that the committee and the council decides.
Any kind of an estimated cost out there of what Sparky's talking about for an indoor, outdoor pool? What would that raise the price of that? Is there,
It would raise the price. I think the best, I will say this, I think that if something would happen to where we took part in an indoor pool, it would certainly have to be a partnership, something like the Y for that to happen. I don't think we have the to probably make that happen with this dollar amount alone,
Right.
et cetera. So I think you would have to go ahead and do some type of partnership with them for that.
I think there's some interesting information online. I went to one, I was going to try to print it out, my printer went kaput. And it was a study that they did up in Ames, Iowa, for indoor, outdoor pool, and it gave cost in like 8 different versions, anywhere from like $8 million to $27 million, depending on what you want. And I know that I think that I had mentioned this before. I was at the Kirkwood High School pool, which that was done with all donated money of a total of $11 million. And they
Oh, you want to tell them about your donation that you?
that's where Kurt Voss agreed to donate part of that.
Oh, that's right.
But
Okay.
anyway,
Clarification.
that's a beautiful facility, and they have, I believe it is like 8 50-meter lanes and 6 25-meter lanes, plus a diving pool area. And that was done, I'm assuming, for $11 million. And it's just, I don't know what the cost is going to be, but there's information online if you're interested in getting into that. And the one from Ames, Iowa is extremely interesting.
Well, as Darren, I had asked Darren when he put together this presentation or whatever to, it was primarily for the committee, so they could just at least get a ballpark of it. I was like, this is like window shopping for an aquatic complex. I have no idea. I think most people have no idea what you get per square foot. What do you get for that dollar amount? And so we took a look at what, you know, some of the other communities received, and I think he did a good job of putting together at least some numbers to give you an idea. And so that was what we wanted to provide the committee, and I think they were grateful for that, so.
Very good.
What time is the meeting on Tuesday?
1 o'clock.
And it's here?
It will be here, correct.
Can I ask a couple questions on something else besides the pool, but things that are listed here for the parks?
Absolutely.
Like if you have down various roofing projects, are we talking on pavilions?
Yes.
Pavilions mainly, there's some of them that might include some restroom buildings
Okay,
as
for
well.
restrooms,
but,
okay.
yes.
And then when, pavilion projects, is that to redo and upgrade some of the pavilions that really need work?
Yes, that is mainly the ones right around Lions Lake.
So it's not any new?
No, it wouldn't be any additional, it'd be taking care of
Okay,
what
what
we
we got?
currently have.
Okay. I thought I had one more, but I don't remember right now. So Riverfront Park project, what are we talking about for $250,000?
The main part of that would be the parking lot. It'd be paving that parking lot, which is going to be roughly ballparking somewhere around 100, 125 of that. Other things that we're looking at that, if you may recall, in the past when we brought this forth with that design, there was a restroom facility as part of that. There was an amphitheater, there was an overlook area, there was a plaza area, an extension of the trail through there, and some landscaping. I think that total was around $775,000 for that whole project. But we know the first main key ingredient is get that parking lot taken care of. Other parts of it could be done as funds come available. So
So that would be phase one.
Yeah, so for 250,000, you'll probably get the parking lot and most likely the restroom.
That's what we,
Mentioned,
that's
that's
what we
what-
wanted to target, was the restrooms. If you wanted to go ahead and add those on to the well house building that's down there already, to see if that could be done.
Would that include any piping under that parking lot for future use for like the stage and, otherwise you're gonna tear the parking lot up again?
Yeah, we would, doing that, we already have, utilities, 2 portions of that site. Such as we have, the sewer, the water, electric, and we do have some electric that already runs over to where that the plaza area would be. We'd have to see if that is enough electric to do that. And yes, I think it'd be prudent on our part to at least put conduit in at that time when we do the parking lot, so at least when we do the phase, we can make those connections.
Infrastructure for the new park is the Miller Post? It's really not, it's under economic development.
That is for the industrial park, not for park
That's
system.
So we don't have any funds that we're thinking about it presently for Miller Post?
Not out of the sales tax.
Okay.
In our last minute, so you was talking about fencing on Miller Post. Is that in our, this year's budget to put fencing up out there?
We've already purchased that fencing, and it's sitting in our lot, and that's something that we're looking to get to later this winter. We're actually going to start it this past week or so, but with the temperatures being what they are, but we're starting to work on it this winter.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? New business, Darren?
I'm sorry?
New business, next thing?
I do not have anything new.
And our next meeting is February the 1st, 2018. Any other comments, questions by the board? No. A motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
That's quick.
Okay, now who made that? Bob made the motion and Dan seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you very much.